Okay, talking to create closeness, to create and reestablish connection. Let's look at some of the vectors and some of the things that have been working for me today. Number one is internal age. This is one of the axes of connection. This is as simple as right now, I feel 4 years old and really scared of doing the wrong thing. How old are you right now? And what do you feel? What does this part of you feel? Now, in the case of trauma, where there are blanks in memory, numbnesses, etc., it may need a little bit more prompt. For example, I've been bossy today with my partner, and so the question that seemed kind of most relevant as a prompt is, how small do you feel on a 1 to 10 scale? And she replied 6 out of 10. And I said, how big do I seem on a 1 to 10 scale? She said, so big. So this is kind of creating, you know, the dominating giant little child dynamic, which is much easier to trigger with someone with a history of abuse and trauma. Then the next question is, what could be done? What could I do to make you feel bigger? Well, my partner said she didn't like my silence, which meant that just talking was helping. Also, the very fact that I'm offering to move myself around her, the question, what can I do to make you feel bigger, is itself a beginning question. It is a question that makes one feel bigger, because it is saying, you are important enough for me to adjust things around you, as opposed to the message that I'd been sending her earlier. I'm disappointed with this. You need to grow here. Go and do your projects here. And you're not important enough to check in with, see how you're doing, relate to, adjust to. This is a series of actions that makes her feel smaller. The other thing that kind of helps is, or that helped today, was, talking about the helplessness that I feel. I think it's important that my partner have the skills and confidence to be able to take care of herself at any point, for the very reason that there's any number of things that could lead to a separation. I could die. Something could trigger me to a point where I felt I was becoming too abusive, or she felt I was being too abusive. In that case, she needs to be safe and to be able to make an objective decision about what's best for her well-being. So I've clearly stated this as something that's important to me. Secondly, she's created goals. She's created a budget. In this case, it's in Thai baht, because we're in Thailand. And how many, in this case, because she has a greeting card business, how many custom, unique greeting cards she needs to create each day? In this case, 10, with 5 when we're together, to sustain that budget. So this is her budget, and she gets a fixed amount for each greeting card, so this is the amount. And she's been slumping off, tired, distracted by me. Those are the biggest things, doing little errands, going out on adventures, and she's fallen below. And so I feel anxiety on her behalf and on my behalf, because I feel much like I'm not doing my job as a teacher and guide if she's not growing in self-reliance. I'm not doing my job. And I feel miserable, because if I say nothing and she doesn't grow on her own, I feel like I'm failing. However, the voice that motivates me to get things done, and I've achieved most of my goals and many thousands of goals over the years, is kind of a let's get moving, let's do it immediately voice. And I often get ramped up and then don't calm down until I've succeeded. But she doesn't have that voice. But when I'm invested in her doing one of her goals, I feel that ramped up energy, and it becomes quite critical and impatient with her, just as it is with me. The only difference is that I jump on my goals and get them done. She doesn't have that habit and temperament. And I don't want to be the bad ogre. I don't want to be the monster who's always nagging. I want to be the one saying, well done, you got another 5 cards today. Good for you. I want to be that person. But for me to be that person, she's got to do those 5 cards. And she's not. And we're in this complicated dance where I'm mentor, I'm father, I'm business advisor, I'm banker, backing the plan, I'm friend, I'm playmate, I'm lover and partner. And with lover energy, it's very tender and sensitive, and partnering energy. And I don't want to be, bossy, etc. One of my goals was to meet a woman who was independently wealthy to avoid this dynamic, because I like to teach independence. Women often have profound experiences with me in one dimension or another because I'm unusual, and so they're going to have an unusual experience of some kind. Sometimes it's a terrifying experience, and then we can partner to disengage because it just means my intensity is too strong for her. But other times it's a profoundly sacred experience that's unusual. It's an experience of deep transparency that's unusual. It's an experience of deep love and being loved that's unusual. It's an experience of peak growth that is unusual, etc., etc. And whenever something is very unusual, it can create a monopoly type dynamic. In my current partner's life, I'm the only person who's ever listened to all of her feelings and validated them. So that's a monopoly position. I'm the only one who has protected her with my money as opposed to used her to get money. I'm the only one who has helped her start a business. I'm the only one who has been totally honest with her. I'm the only one who hasn't cheated on her sexually. and I'm the only one who has played a therapeutic role and a strong mentoring role to lift out of traumatic states. So these are big monopoly positions that are hard to refill, which creates a strong attachment, which can in turn lead to blind spots. If you're strongly attached to someone, you don't see their faults as much. And I have plenty of faults, and so it's important from my perspective to use the leverage of those monopoly positions to encourage someone to go out and replace me, basically. So that's business schools that would allow her to make more money if I'm not the bank than if I am. Those skills are available. They just take time and practice. That's daily habits, diary writing, inner child meditation, routine, diet, etc. That would go up if I'm not there than if I'm there disrupting the routine. Those are habits. The art of making friendships and getting to know people that are easier to deal with than me. Those are habits and skills that need to be cultivated. The art of loving one's inner child, the art of self-discipline, these are all habits. And so, Jen has grown 3,000% in the last 13 months in these areas, doing these habits. But is not yet in a place where she could replace me and not experience a big dip. I think she'd experience a dip of about 80%, meaning that where she is right now, relative to where we met, that currently 80% of the well-being and safety and etc. that she's sustaining presently would evaporate, and she'd only be 20% ahead of the full gains. Now that's not bad, because that's 60% better. If you take 20% of 3,000% growth, that's actually more. That's 600% better than when we met. So that's not bad. But some would be more difficult than others. I mostly wanted to talk about the ways to restore flow. So things that I've said today are, I feel like a bully, and I feel helpless about that. Because if I don't give you a prod, I can't count on you to get your work done. If I do give you a prod, and I see the fact that you feel like a 6-year-old girl, I don't want to feel like I'm prodding a 6-year-old girl. It's just, I want you to self-motivate. But I'm helpless because you're not. You respond to my prodding. I feel like crap when I prod you. You feel like crap when I prod you, but you get your work done. I feel helpless. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know what the right thing is. I just know that today you are getting your work done. And I'm happy about that. when she replied that she's feeling useless and that nothing she's doing is right, I said that's partly why I'm frustrated, because you feel useless when you are useful. You're getting all your work done today, but you feel useless. But on days where I don't prod you and you don't get anything done, you don't feel useless, but you are not getting things done. So there's kind of a inversion going on. I feel sad about this. I don't know what to do. Talking about my sadness, my helplessness, my loneliness, my fears, my goals and why, and what's difficult and confusing and what is scary. It helps, I think, with the feeling of smallness, because someone realizes you're doing your best and you don't know what to do. And checking in with body language and asking her later, how small do you feel now? Nothing, she said. I don't feel small at all, because I talked about these things. Watching her become more cheerful, carrying on the work and being cheerful. That's kind of my goal, is to create some kind of a mental, emotional roadmap where she can be cheerful, happy, proud of her work, self-sustaining, and thus independent. Which, as I say, I'm not worried about that now, but you have to think about the future. In other words, if she can't sustain herself while we're together, expecting her to deal with a breakup and learning how to sustain herself is too much. It's not a kind thing to set someone up for. Nor do I want the relationship to end. But statistically speaking, it may. How many people have you met or thought you'd like to have in your life in your whole lifetime that are not currently, you don't know where they are, you haven't spoken to them in months, they're not really in your life, and that's not very, you don't want to bet on those odds. You want to have a good plan B. So this is just what I've been exploring, and the day began when I woke up from a dream in which I saw how terrified I was of being rejected for not doing it perfectly. And then I connected that with my mother and her ambivalence to me, and my promising myself erroneously that if I was perfect, she wouldn't be ambivalent emotionally. She would be there. But I never got perfect, and she never got fully emotionally present. And so my childhood is just in terror of abandonment in different forms or another. And I'm starting to see that level of panic externalized when Jen has to be perfect. Or I'm afraid, it's kind of this feeling like the world will end, which is certainly so appropriate for a 2 or 3 year old little boy with his mom if she doesn't love and take care of him. But the feelings are the same way. The self-criticism becomes criticism of others. The perfectionism of self becomes the perfectionism of others. The manic exhaustion of self becomes hurry up, get it done. It's a manic energy. It's a compulsive energy. It doesn't tend towards enjoyment. So, and Jen was the perfect partner for me, holding me, being kind to me, letting me be an imperfect man tossing around in the bed, And then when I talked about some of the things, she was completely silent. And so I prodded her. I said, come on, Jen, say something. You know, I just bared my heart to you. I don't want to get the sense that you're falling off to sleep and you don't care. Say something. Which is back to that, critical energy. And so she groped around. She was not always sure what to say, but she said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and thank you for telling me, and said some things that made me feel comforted. And then later in the day, she said that my silence, not talking to her, made her feel bad. And then I, talked about our differences, that when I feel bad that she's silent, I immediately prod her into saying something that makes me feel better. When she feels bad that I'm silent, she sulks and feels like she's not important enough to interrupt me, and she is important enough. So these are some of the insights and growth today. How to talk with a partner under stress and dealing with deep issues.